Okay, so I thought we would take another look at multiplying integers because in our upcoming lessons we're going to look at multiplying more than two integers at a time. So I just wanted to have us take a look at it. So you should have this worksheet in front of you, Integers Worksheet 6. And I just wanted to go through some of these. So again, we've kind of seen these when we did that one worksheet on multiplying signed decimals. Where we had more than two decimals to multiply and it came up, but I just want to look at it again. So let's start with number 13 here. So number 13 says do 2 times negative 1 times 2. So again, there's a number of ways you can do it. You can group these two together. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And then negative 2 times 2 is is negative 4, because a negative times a positive is a negative, and then it's 4. You could just multiply the positives together. 2 times 2 is 4, and then times the negative 1. Another way you could do it is just multiply all the numbers and ignore the signs. So if we just took 2 times 1 times 2 and multiply them all together, 2 times 1 is 2 times 2 is 4, but then go back and look to see the signs. So here we're going to have a positive times a negative, which is a negative, and a negative times a positive, which is a negative, and so that would end up giving us negative 4. So there are a number of different ways to do that. Let's look at number 14. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 times negative 2. Now we've got a negative times a negative, which is going to give us a positive, and then 2 times 2, which is 4, so positive 4. Here we've got, this one should be pretty straightforward. 2 times 1 is 2, and then times 2 is 4. This is just like old news because there's no signs in it, so it's just only going to be positive. All right, here it gets a little bit more interesting. We've got three signs here. So negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. And then positive 2 times negative 2 is going to give us the negative, because we've got one of each sign, and then it's going to be 4. All right, just looking at this though, you should be able to tell me that the answer to this is going to be negative, because again, remember, every time you have two negatives, that makes a positive. So the fact that we have 3 negatives means that we have an odd man out here. So it's going to end up being a positive times a negative, which will give you a negative. Let's see what happens when we go down here. We're going to skip over this row because it's just two integers again. When we go down to 21 here, let's look at that. So we see that we've got 1, 2 negatives. Those pair up and are going to make a positive, and the other 2 right there are positive. So the answer to this, without even doing it, we know is going to end up being positive. Now if we look at the numbers that we're multiplying, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and then 9 times 2 is 18. So we've already decided the sign. Let me write that down here. Is going to be positive because we have 2 negatives that will cancel each other out or join to make a positive, and then 2 more positives. So we end up with positive 18 as our answer. All right, here there's only 1 negative, so no matter how many positives we multiply together, that will never change this from anything to a negative. So if we just look at these, 1 times 3 times 2, that gives us 6, and then 6 times negative 3. That right there is going to give us a negative 18. All right, we go to number 23. Notice how we have 4 negatives, or 2 sets of negatives, or 2 pairs of negatives. So negative times negative is going to give us a positive. Negative times negative is going to give us a positive. Positive times positive is going to give us a positive. So we know our answer to this is going to be positive. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6, and so we get positive 18. Again, that positive sign I put out front is not necessary, but I'm just doing that because at first I looked to see whether it would be positive or negative. All right, so again, I always, as I'm doing math problems, try and think of different ways I can check myself, because I'm usually the one making the answer key, not with the answer key to check. So when I see that, I can either do it -3 times -1 is +3, -3 times -2 is +6, and get +18. But I also use this as a backup to say, oh, there's 4 negatives. Anytime I have an even number of negatives, that means my answer is going to be positive, because each time I make one pair of negatives, it becomes a positive. Another pair of negatives become a positive. So just use that to kind of check yourself when there is no answer key available. And again, this one is kind of, back in like, 4th or 5th grade when you were doing multiplying, because it's only positive numbers here. Again, that was back when we didn't know about negatives. So 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is, 3 times 1 is 3, times 3 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18. All right, so again, this row, as in this row, we use the same numbers here. We just changed the signs from positive to negative, same thing. Our answers were always 18, but it might be positive or might be negative, depending on how we varied those signs. All right, so then let's take a look at number 25. Now we're starting to get up into 5 numbers. All right, so again, you can go through and multiply the pairs through, or just do it in a row. -1 times 2 is -2, times 1 is -2, times 2 is -4, times 1 is -4. Or you can just say, there's only one negative in here. There's nobody for him, so he's going to end up staying negative. All the other things are going to be positive, so it's going to end up as a negative times a positive, which is negative. When I do that, then I'm less focusing on the signs and more just the number part. So I'm going to ignore that negative in the 1 and do 1 times 2 is 2, times 1 is 2, times 2 is 4, times 1 is 4, and then say, oh, I know it's going to be negative. All right, same thing here. Here I see that I have a pair of negatives. Those two will make a positive. There are no other negatives, so I'm going to have a positive and all the rest positive. The answer to this is going to be positive. All right, and then I'm just going to focus on the numbers. 1 times 2 is 2, times 1 is 2, times 2 is 4, times 1 is 4. This is going to give me a positive 4. All right, down here we are still with 5 numbers. Again, these 4 kind of go together because they're all 1s and 2s. In the same order. We're just varying the amount of negatives. So here we had 1 negative, now we have 2 negatives, now we've got 3 negatives. Again, this pair of negatives makes a positive. This negative has nobody to pair up with, so this will make a positive. These two will make a positive. This negative is alone. And when we've got just a single negative, positive times positive, we're going to end up with a negative answer. Right, this is going to give us positive 2, this is going to give us positive 2, and this will give us -1. So our answer will be -4. And in this final one of this type, we've got a positive, because we've got a pair of negatives, another pair of negatives. So positive, positive, and then that 1 is positive, all positives. 1 times 2 is 2, times 1, or actually we could think 2, 2, and 1. This is going to give us another 4. All right, now we get down here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things in our product. Same thing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to go through and I'm just going to check, is this going to be positive or negative? One pair of 2 negatives gives me a positive. Then I've got this pair right here, which is going to give me another positive, and this pair right here, which is going to give me another positive. Every negative in here is paired up with somebody else, so the answer to this is going to be positive. Now I'm just going to go through and focus on the number parts. I can ignore all the 1s. I've already accounted for their signs, and they're not going to do anything to change the product. The 1 part is not. So I'm just going to go through here. This is a 2 times another 2. Again, I've already accounted for the sign in this. I've paired them together to make that positive. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. All right. And again, if you don't like that, you can always go through and just do this. 2 times -2 is -4. -4 times -1 is +4. +4 times -1 is going to give me -4. -4 times 2 is going to give me -8. -8 times -1 is going to give me +8. +8 times -1, I'm going to move up here again. +8 times -1 is going to give me -8, and -8 times -1 is going to give me +8. But we're taking advantage of the fact that we're separating this into 2 processes, actually. We're going to use what we know about negative numbers and how two negatives together when multiplied make a positive, so that when we go through the second time we can focus on the number parts instead of doing both the number and the sign at the same time. All right, again, let's look at this. Two negatives will make a positive. 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 All right, so when we go through here, we're just going to focus on the number part. So this is going to be 2 times 2, which is 4, 1 times 1, which is 1, 2 times 1, which is 2, 1 times 1, which is 1. So this is going to be, again, a positive 8. Okay, hope that was helpful. You're going to see problems like this in Fred in lesson 9. Bye.